Hi guys, my name's Sophie. I'm a part of the Equity Mates clan from the You're in Good Company podcast. And we're here today in the Magellan greenhouse. So a big thanks to Magellan, one of FinFest's major sponsors. Getting rich should be boring, which is something that I have learned over the past couple of years. But this session today isn't going to be. Building wealth shouldn't be an all-consuming process, it should be a bit of fun. And today we are joined by Owen, who is the founder of Rask Australia, and Kate, who is a personal finance educator at Rask Australia as well. And they are going to be chatting to you all about getting rich slowly, which is, nice. Just a disclaimer before we start today, all information is presented today is for educational purposes only. Any advice is general advice, and we haven't taken into account your personal circumstances, so seek professional advice if needed. And if you're unsure, seek professional advice. Equity Mates operates under the Australian Financial Services Licence 540697. Please welcome Kate and Owen.
So, can you give us a thumbs up if you can hear us? That's what we always do on the live shows because we don't know. Second question, raise your hand if you've listened to one of our podcasts. Good, okay, we've got opportunity in the room, I like it. Put your hand up if you've been investing if you've made at least one investment. Most of the room, great. Put your hand up if you've been investing for more than 3 years. Great, so you are fully qualified. It's an apprenticeship, well done. So today we're going to be talking about getting rich slow. If you just get rid of the slow or quick, just get rich is probably the easiest thing to do. So it's wonderful to have you all here today, especially in the green room where it's nice and toasty. We're going to give you a few actionable things we want you to go away with from today. And our presentation today is going to be, chances are, very different to everyone else. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to talk about getting wealthy, but the slow way, because there's a lot of talks here that are going to be giving you stock pitches, how to get rich quick. There's going to be a lot of different people around, and there is some fundamentals of investing that make it a lot simpler. We're going to talk about exchange-traded funds. We're going to talk about some basic ways to get started. But I think the main thing that we want you to take away from today is that it's important to get started now. Investing can be simple, it can be boring, and it doesn't need to take over your life. You do not need to become finance nerds like us. And really, that you just need to give it time and you need to give it patience. And that's really what we want to get out today.
Yeah, we've been doing this for about 5 years. That says, never mind the formatting, 4.5 million downloads. We're actually a lot bigger than that if you include all the other stuff that we do, which we'll get to in a minute. But it's thanks to people like you that have bought into the philosophy and everything that we champion, which is low cost, it's simple, everyone can do it. My background is in investment consulting, investment research, and to come here and see so many people engaged that don't come from that background is just awesome. So thank you for being here. Safe investing.
Safe investing.
I've got notes on my hand because we're not allowed slides, so this makes it a lot easier for me.
Yes, so we want to talk about exchange-traded funds a lot today, but we also want to talk about why. Oh, we're going straight here.
Not him.
Oh, right.
Okay, never mind that. This is a glitch.
Okay. Well, you can talk about that if you want.
We'll keep MJ on the screen for a minute, and we're going to be doing a giveaway, and it involves him. So, yeah, never mind. Technical error, but let's go on.
All right.
Safe investing, worst investment.
Oh, worst investment? Well, before I discovered exchange-traded funds, before I discovered investing could be very simple, I downloaded my CommSec app, about 18, and started buying and selling a lot of random things. And I was very enticed by the colors, what was going up that day, what was going down. And some of the things I bought at the time, which you still don't see in stores, are jetpacks. I mean, that was supposed to be the next big thing. Mm-hmm. Drones, semi-taken off, but not in the use that they were selling. There was supposed to be some special fire tool, but there was a lot of random things that I bought and sold at the start. And I was doing what you would call trading, but also trading with no idea what you were doing. And that was not a way to get rich quick, not a way to get rich quick or slowly either. And really, the only person who made money at the time was CommSec. Probably hundreds and hundreds of dollars in brokerage.
CommSec, if you're watching, never mind that.
All right.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your first investment?
So one of the things that happens when people are new to investing is they get really scared about making a mistake. Put your hand up if you spent more than, say, a month deciding on a broker. Anyone? Yeah, we've got a few hands in the crowd. Put your hand up again if you spent more than a week deciding on an investment. A lot of hands, right? So you get like, I guess, paralysis by analysis, whichever way you want to phrase that. My worst investment was actually not something that I lost money on. It's something that I didn't make money on. So I'll give an example. It's not a company that we recommend, but in Australia, here's a company called Nearmap, which does geospatial imagery. Like it takes photos from planes and does maps and all this wonderful stuff. I invested and I went hard into this investment. It was my biggest position. I held it for years at about 50 cents, and then I sold it because I got bored. Then it went to about $4. And then I was like, okay, this is great. But I actually went back and looked at this a couple of years ago, and some of our members in the room might know this. When I looked at this, I actually realized that I'd lost the opportunity to make money on that, and that was so much money that it outweighed all of the investments that I'd lost money on. And so for me, the lesson here was like, if you do invest in something, there's so much more upside if you are a long-term investor than there is the short-term downside. So, obviously this is just one company, but when it comes to ETFs, for example, and pretty much any stock market investment, the most you can lose is 100%. But if you're a long-term investor where compounding kicks in, you can make so much more money than that. And so my lesson from that is be long-term focused. I was looking at the share price thinking, this hasn't done anything. But actually the business was growing. And so for me, I should have just paid attention to that and just let it go. And eventually that would have caught up. So, Kate, I think I've got a few things for you. The first one is, for people, there's a few people in the room that haven't listened to our podcast. How would they do that? What's the podcast called?
Yep, so Owen and I host the Australian Finance Podcast. That's every Monday and Friday on your favorite podcast player. Owen also does the Australian Investors Podcast if you really want to nerd out. And you've recently launched the Australian Business Podcast for all these small business owners.
Yes.
But what we wanted to talk about today is why are we actually investing? Because a lot of people think investing's something that stuffy old men do in their ivory towers, and it just doesn't seem relatable at all. But the reason why we invest is to just take back control of our own financial futures. And you can invest with as little as $5. And we'll talk about some of the tools later, but it's just become so much more accessible now to invest than it used to be. And this is fantastic, especially for anyone young in the room. You have so much time to get started, and it doesn't have to be scary, which is the big thing. And one of the places we like to start is thinking about your net worth, because I don't know about you, but I've Googled people's net worths a lot in Google. Yep, I don't know, Elon Musk, you might have Googled his, maybe the King. Yep. I've Googled Adam Driver's. Yes, but it's a great starting point because you want to know where you are right now before you move forward. So you want to know how much you have. So maybe you've got some investments now. Maybe you've got some superannuation. Maybe you've got some cash stashed in a high interest savings account. And then you also want to know what your liabilities are. So maybe you have some credit card debt and you need to focus on that first. And you can use this as a starting point to know what your current net worth is. And although Owen's going to laugh because this is my favorite quote, your net worth doesn't equal your self-worth, it is a really good starting point to know where you are, because if you don't know the money coming in and the money coming out of your life, you're not really sure what's left over to start moving forwards and start investing.
Yeah, has anyone here calculated their net worth? It's okay, no shame. Yeah, great, wonderful. Does anyone here have an investment plan or strategy written down in any way? So we've got like maybe 5-10% of the room. Okay. That's one thing that I've learned doing this for 10 years is that you probably want to write things down, because then you can reflect on it when you've made a mistake or you've been successful. You can be agile, you can learn, because otherwise we're just like throwing darts at a dartboard. There's a thing that we have in investing. It's called the collector. The collector is someone who goes and buys everything. Like we run membership sites and we have subscriptions and all that, and we make recommendations. And a lot of our members have been with us for years, and they just go and buy each and every single thing that we've ever recommended. Fantastic. But they end up with 20 ETFs, 30 shares, and they're like, what is this? There's no strategy. So even just writing down what you're doing and why is so powerful. And it's funny that Kate mentioned Adam Driver. I'm not sure if you've seen the ad where he's on the horse, he's got his shirt off. That's probably where this ties in. But seriously, like one of the things that happens, and we all are kind of engrossed by this, is people hear us on the podcast, they see us do these interviews with billionaires or whatever, and then they start Googling someone's name, net worth. And it's like, I do it too, like Elon Musk, obviously Tesla. I want to know how people get rich. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to give you 5 ways to think about this, or just different ways you can do it. And we've seen it done with over 400 interviews and thousands and thousands of different discussions. We're going to show you the 5 ways that we know make sense. But this happens on the podcast. People Google our names, then net worth. So it happens to us too. And we only keep that in a spreadsheet, I guess.
Yeah, that's private information, but you could try. You could try.
Everything's on the internet, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So, do you want to do the giveaway now? Do you want to try that? Or?
Yeah. Well, they're next.
Everyone knows what's next. So
there we go.
Okay. So for those of you that don't know, Kate's on a bit of a mission. I'm catching you off guard here. Kate's giving away. She wants to give away 1,000 books. Okay, so she wants to give away 1,000 books. We're on a mission.
Yep.
How far into it are you?
I think we're 100 in, but personal finance books, to be clear, I'm not giving away Harry Potter here, but this is over 10 years because I don't know about you, but books have been a huge part of my own personal finance and investing journey. And some of you may have started with The Barefoot Investor or The Simple Path to Wealth or some of those fantastic finance books out there. And sometimes it just requires one book to get you started on your journey and overcome that hurdle. I don't know how Owen's going to do this giveaway, but...
Yeah, so it's a bit of like a silent disco in here. But what I'm going to get you to do is I'm just going to get you to yell out the answer to some of this trivia that we're going to do as we go through. And then afterwards, we'll be in the Equity Mates Media Lounge thing. And just be careful if you throw your hand up, you don't hit anyone in the head or take off your headphones. And then come and see us and we'll give you a book. The book that we're giving away today is The Psychology of Money.
Yep, Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It's one of our favorite personal finance books. I have about 20 copies here today. So if you don't win, but you come and tell me a money hack after the talk, you might win a copy. So
there's also 3 t-shirts in random women's sizes. So we've given away a heap this week, but there are 3. So if you're a bloke, sure, you can sport it today. I would love to see you in it. But even if you've got a partner with they're at home, you can come and get it too. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a question. I know a lot of us are going to throw this out. They're going to have the right question, so I'm just going to pick the first person. Everyone knows who this is, right? A guy that played basketball, also played baseball. Michael Jordan. I need you to tell me, so we all know he was the best basketball player ever, basically. Maybe LeBron or whoever's challenging that now. But I need you to tell me the one way he got wealthy. Just throw it out. What was it? Nike. Yes, that's it. Correct. So he makes more money now than he did in his whole playing career. And the way he does that, he makes about $4.50 per shoe sold. So that's the way he got wealthy. Not by playing basketball, by owning part of a business. All right? Does anyone know who this is? Yes. Orpah. That's her name. Not Oprah, Orpah. That's her actual name. They made a misspelling. And so from that point on, they just started calling her Oprah. Does anyone want to guess how she got wealthy? She's worth, I think, about $2.5 billion. TV network? I'll take that. Harpo Studios. When she started the Oprah Winfrey Show, she obviously got super famous. And the production company offered her 4% in royalties. And she went back to them and said, no. And then she said, I'm not doing it anymore. So they said, well, fine, we're not doing it either. So what did she do? She went and bought a 2-acre block in California and she built Harpo Studios. She ran her own show and then that same company licensed her content and started selling it. So it was her business that made her money. Well, it says the name of the person on the screen, so this is a bit of a giveaway. Shout out to Bloomberg. Does anyone want to guess how this person got rich? There's someone over here, male voice. Atlassian, yes. Mike Cannon-Brookes, co-founder of Atlassian, does software for developers and software engineers. Owns, I believe, an unbelievable house here. We're from Victoria, but he owns an unbelievable house on the water. Got wealthy, starting a business. Seems to be a common thread. Everyone knows who this is, right? Yeah, cool. Now, this is a bit of a mixed bag. And this is more for the ladies in the room. Although, gents, if you do have the answer, shout it out. Does anyone want to guess how she's got wealthy? Not how she started to get famous, but how she's made a lot of money. Okay, I'll give you some tips because it's Skims. Who said this?
Oh, there you go.
The gentleman at the back here. Are you a user of the products? Okay, wonderful.
I think she does skincare.
That was a yes,
now.
by the way. Huh?
I think she does skincare. So
She does skincare, yeah. KK is a KKW. She owns a bunch of different businesses now. Obviously, she got fined for pumping crypto or something recently, but that's a whole
move on.
What's a whole different thing.
I think the point of this whole segment is that you can build wealth by investing in things. And what we talk about a lot is investing in businesses. And the way we invest in businesses, you can buy shares through the stock exchange. In Australia, you've probably heard of the ASX, the Australian Stock Exchange. So things like Telstra and BHP and CBA, you can buy pieces of that company. You don't have to work there, you don't have to deal with it, you don't have to deal with the customers, but you can actually own a piece of that company. And if the company does well, you get to benefit from that as well. And what we actually love talking about is exchange traded funds, because it is a lot of work to decide what company, what shares you want to buy. A lot of people start investing and they go, oh, I want Disney, or they'll buy whatever's going really well at the moment. But we love talking about exchange traded funds, and we use the analogy of a box of favorites recently. So instead of having to buy the Crunchy from the supermarket or the what's another one?
Cherry Ripe.
Cherry Ripe. You can just buy a box of favorites that has all of the chocolates in it. And so you get a bit of everything. And we love that because that's diversification. But if you want to invest in the top Australian businesses, you can buy an ETF, and the people running the show will go out and buy all of those top Australian businesses, put a bit of all of them in a box and sell you units of it. So it makes it really easy for people just getting started with investing. Instead of having to make all those decisions of which 10 or 20 companies I want to invest in, you can just buy the box. And the great thing is, there's a box for everything nowadays. So you want to invest in US companies, you don't need to decide if you want Tesla or Amazon. You can buy the box and it does it all. And there's even ethical ones nowadays and thematic ones that if you just want robotics, there's something for you. So I'm sure you'll hear more today about the different thematic ETFs. We talked about ETFs so much in detail in our recent mini-series on the podcast, and we used the box of favorites and ate a lot of chocolate in the meantime. But they're a great way to get started.
Yeah. We hands up. Anyone that owns an ETF?
Awesome.
That's more than half. That's great. Hands up. Anyone that owns individual stocks? About the same. That's good. So when we've surveyed our members, the most stark was about 6 months ago. We surveyed our members and said, "Are you going to invest in ETFs in the next 12 months?" 97.5% said yes. For stocks, it was 71%. So this is like a tectonic shift where people are like, I prefer ETFs. I like this. This sounds simple. I remember when we first started talking about ETFs on the podcast, Kate, my brother-in-law said to me, this ETF stuff just makes sense. Why wouldn't I just invest in one of those? And we think, why not, right? You'll hear different stories from different people around the traps. There's a lot of people here that have a very centralized view. We don't really care if you use ETFs. Like, we don't issue them, we don't make them, we don't do whatever. But we think they're great. We also think individual stocks are great. We also think property is great. We think everything's great. And you can do it all. This is just a really simple way to wrap it all together. Yeah.
And they're great building blocks. So when you're a new investor building your portfolio, you're thinking with we hope you're going to think with a 10, 20, 30-year time horizon, just like what your super fund's doing for you. They actually use very similar things. Some of them use ETFs, some of them use index funds in their portfolios. So the experts have kind of figured this out, but it's been a bit of a hidden secret for a long time.
Yeah, I was up in Noosa this week, and I was chatting to some really hardcore investors, and these people studied investing for 10 years, right? They're like gods of investing, right? And even amongst them, they're like, this makes sense. This makes sense. And these are the people that have studied this for a lifetime. And so it's not just people like us in the room who are maybe beginners or new to investing. We're just looking for long-term, simple stuff. It's for financial advisors. It's for everyone. And so that's the great thing about these things. They make it easier, make it accessible. So we want to leave you with a few ways that I think Kate and I have done maybe 400 episodes. maybe I've done a few extra 100 on the Investors podcast, and we want to leave you with 5 things that you can take away today. You don't have to take away all 5 of them. We would just really love it if you think about one of these things. I can see some notepads around. It would be lovely for us to see you just keep a note of these 5 things and try to put into place one of these things over the next, say, 30 days. They're very straightforward. Try to, don't be hard on yourself. That's one thing that we've learned about investing, but just don't be hard on yourself. Put one of these down. It's a lot simpler than it seems, okay? Here we go.
The first one is to earn more, and that's by investing in your career. If you haven't negotiated your salary in the last few years, and you're in an industry where you're able to do so, this is the year, because if you earn more and you're spending less, that increases the amount that you're able to invest for your future. Of course, you want to have fun now, but it's also a good idea to look after future you. And my main action tip for this is start keeping a file of all of your achievements, all of that glowing client feedback. Every time your manager says, oh, great job, that was great. Because your boss is not going to remember all these things. So keep a file, whether it's in your inbox, it's printed out. And so then when you go to your performance review, you've got your case, you've got your investment thesis, if you will, of why they should pay you a little bit more. So invest in yourself this year.
So think about if inflation is, say, 5%, and your wage hasn't gone up 5%, you are going backwards. So remember that, right? So that's a good case to be made when you go and speak to them. And what we would say is make sure you prep for it. A lot of people go into the annual review, they're like, hi, I'm here, tell me how well I did. Go in, you tell them how well you did, right? So the second one is win the lottery. Okay, that's a bit harder. Maybe that is a legit number 2.
Well, the premise of the speech was get rich really slowly, so
okay.
I mean, you might
that was maybe my one that I put in. But interestingly, when someone wins the lotto, the person next door to the neighbor to the person that wins the lotto in like a suburb is the most likely person to go broke, because we try and keep up with the Joneses, right? We see our neighbor, they've just bought a brand new Tesla or whatever, and we try and keep up with them, so we have lifestyle inflation. So this is, I guess, a lesson in envy, is just trying to avoid that. Run your own race, and it's okay. Everyone is different. That's point number 2. Kate.
Point number 3, if you haven't already, though it seems most of you have, open a brokerage account. You're allowed more than one. You can try them out. Do you want to mention a few?
Yeah, so we'll mention a few. And full disclosure, Perla is a sponsor of our podcast, and so is Self-Wealth. So they're our 2 sponsors, so we'll mention them. And we actually presented at the Perla event called Get Rich Slow.
Yeah.
So shout out to those guys. We've got Stake here, we've got ComSec, we've got a bunch of different brands in the room. It's wonderful. You can choose more than one. Try them out, as Kate said. A lot of people get hung up. Is this one safe? Is that one safe? They're all really regulated. Just make sure they have an AFSL, which you saw the Equity Mates one there. So that's it. And you can use ETFs to get started. We say start with ETFs, over time build your confidence, then move into individual shares.
Yeah. The most important thing is to get started, and with really small amounts. So some of you may be familiar with Raise, where you can get started with just $5. The important thing is to feel like an investor. Instead of just being a consumer, you can actually be an owner of the economy, which is a really cool feeling. Like you walk into that Macca's and you own part of that company, even if it's just through your US ETF.
Yep. Kate, you recently bought a property.
Oh yes, that was a fun time.
Yeah, so could you use property?
You can use property to invest in, and property is a slow journey. And we spoke to Pete Wargent on the show recently, who's a property expert, and he reminded us that it's a snowball. You've got to slowly work at it over time. The property is not an overnight thing, especially with fees.
Yeah, here in Sydney, I feel sorry for you guys. It is so expensive, right? The important point is don't compromise on the house. I come across a lot of people that buy off the plan. It's very risky. I see people that buy apartments that they don't like. And over time, what you want to think about when it comes to property is basically the land value, because the land is what goes up. The property actually depreciates. The actual building goes down. So you want to try and get the right balance between land and property. And I think if you take one thing away, we talk to a lot of different people on the show, and all of you will know this, but the first property is most important, because this is the one that will set you up for the future. So I don't want to put pressure on you, but take your time. We're currently seeing house prices fall, right? So that's a positive if you're a buyer, because all of a sudden you don't need as much deposit. It's going to be stamp duty changes here in Sydney, not in Melbourne. We still get that sweet. So that would be number 4. Number 5.
Start a business and possibly lose your hair.
It happens. I can vouch to that. We have, by the way, courses on every single one of these things. So we have free courses on the website. One of them that we launched recently was starting a business. We've already enrolled 2,000 students into that, and it was only a couple of months ago. And that's awesome. It's so cool. And you know, when we went about doing this, we're realistic. Not everyone's going to start a business like Kim, MJ, so on and so forth. But the stock market exists, so you don't have to. The stock market is how you invest in someone else's business. That is the key point about the stock market. Anyone tries to flog you some trading strategy, just remember what you're buying is a business. And for the long term, that's when you benefit from it. It's really simple when you just remember that. We're going to take questions out in the media lounge. Come and find us. We've got books to give away, but we need you to do one thing. If you want a free book, here's the one thing you have to do.
Yes, you need to come up and tell me or tell Owen your favorite money hack. I'm after new ideas for the podcast, so if you do that,
it's a transaction.
You can win a copy of The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Fantastic book. And I think there's amazing a number of people here today, and I think that should just be an encouragement for your investing journey, that you're not doing it alone. There's a lot of people that want to take control of their financial future alongside you, and you just need to get started. And it looks like so many of you have, which we're very surprised about because we thought we were doing the beginner talk, but that is fantastic. So keep going. Use this day as inspiration for your investing journey, and all the best for your financial future.
Yeah, thank you guys. We've got about 20 free books to give away, so meet us over there, bring us a money hack. It's a transaction. We're looking forward to it, so thank you.
Equity Minds.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.